Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We are coming on live for Candid Convos. Today, we are going to be talking about fear, how you move through fear, what that looks like. So, Misty, I'm going to let you open the conversation and get us started.
Yeah, will do. So I don't think you can be alive and human, let alone an entrepreneur or a mother without experiencing fear. And I think for me, for a long time, it's like, I'm a pretty confident person. I don't have fear. And so I really wanted to open this up to a conversation around what fear, like kind of the we all know like the fear of not being good enough, but or just the fear of being rejected. Those are some more common pieces of fear of failure, especially in business, that sort of thing. But where I have started to notice fear coming up in more subtle ways is confusion. Like, oh, I have no idea what the next step is that I need to take, or comparison. Like, oh, that they've got it all figured out. Why is it working for them and not me? And underlying all of that is just this general sense of I don't have what it takes. And that is fear, the fear of I'm not going to be able to do it. Um, and what that means. And I think what I have found for myself and for my clients is that fear is always it's always there in our best interest. It doesn't feel like that, but it is there just trying to protect us and keep us safe. And so the more we understand and the better the relationship we have with fear, the more we're able to work with it instead of trying to just ignore it or push it out of the way and try to just barrel on through it, which never works. We end up kind of just reacting instead of being proactive and showing up as who we want to be. So would love to hear what you both like, just what are the subtle ways that fear moves, like shows up for you, and how do you move through it?
Oh, so good. Do you want to start, Tanya?
I guess. So I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, what are my fears right now? And I have teenagers, so most of my fears right now are revolving around them. And I was thinking about all of them. What did they all have in common? And I feel like they all have to do with things that are out of my control. Like I can't control what they do when they leave my house. I can't control who they interact with. I can't control, like, even in my home, like what they're seeing on screens, or, like all of that stuff. Um, a lot of the laws around like their health in our state are, I take my kid to the doctor. I don't even have control in a lot of those situations. So so a lot of my fears are around things I can't control. And so I've learned a lot to let some of them go, right? A lot of them are irrational. Nothing's happening right now. I don't need to be worried about this thing. And then others just, this is a signal to pay attention to this thing, right? Like, I'm afraid of this thing. What can I do to, do the best that I can as a parent or in my business or wherever that fear is showing up? Am I doing the best that I can? Otherwise, I just have to let it go, or I'm incapacitated, right? Just the fear just like totally take over. I, like you said, become reactionary, maybe make things worse because of my reactions, that kind of thing. So those were some of my thoughts this morning. I don't know if that helps anybody, but that's kind of where I'm at with my fears.
Yeah. Tanya, that reminds me of, when my kids were toddlers and like when I was a new mom, a lot of the decisions I was making was very fear-based. It was
Yeah.
from like the fear that like, oh my gosh, they're not going to be contributing humans to society, and that just, like you said, makes us more reactionary. We don't make good decisions from that place. And even in the sports world, it was interesting seeing how fear showed up and how it held people back. And where we really saw this was when somebody had like an ACL tear, and it's a, you know, a 9 to 12 month recovery. And they would get to the point where they were ready to go back to competition to play, you know, we'd build up, but that confidence wasn't there for them. And there was this underlying fear of what if I re-injure myself? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not as fast enough? What if I don't get my starting spot back? And so physically they were ready, they were doing the movements, but mentally they weren't. And if you are not in a mental state and you go on the soccer field or the basketball court and you're playing from a timid, fearful place, you will actually be more likely to injure yourself. And so it's this whole like mental game, and fear is there to protect us, right? It is in our design to, you know, run from the saber-toothed tiger that was chasing us. And so those fears are there. But I think for me, it's that question of, is this fear real? Is it something that I really need to, I don't know if pay attention to is the word, like, do I need to allow it to own me and take up that space? And how do I move through that fear and act through that fear? And so I think for me, the fear that shows up is, especially in business, it's like I want to do these big things, right? Like I want to put on these conferences, and there's always this fear of like, what if I can't fill the seats? What if I invest all this money and then, you know, I can't fill the spots? And so I think that's what always like shows up for me, and probably like it's consistently there all the time. Which is not like, that's not a good place either. And so you know, I think it's, for me, it comes down to like how do you get through that fear? For me, it's a lot of journaling, a lot of praying, sometimes feeling frustrated that I'm not getting the answer that I want. But yeah, I think that's what's like most present for me right now.
Yeah, I think those are all so relatable. And so, I mean, we see it in everything. I see it in myself and my business. I see it in my son on the tennis court. You know, I see it in my parenting, or, you know, in my marriage. When I'm reacting from fear, it never feels good. It feels like it's a false sense of control, right, Tanya? It's like oftentimes when I am acting out of fear, I'm trying to create a false sense of control, whether that's worry. Sometimes it's like, I think that if I worry, or if I try to solve the situation in my mind at 3 a.m., you know, somehow I have control over the outcome. Or whether it's just trying to lovingly, but for lack of a better word, manipulate my child or my spouse by trying to make them do the thing that I think they're supposed to do, to alleviate that fear within myself of being out of control. And it never ends well. You know, it's not, like you said, Cherie, when we're acting from a place of timidness and fear, we're more likely to get injured. We're more likely to hit the ball out. You know, my son plays tennis, and in practice is just confident and strong, and he's hitting the ball really well. And he gets into a match where he starts to lose, and he just turns into a completely different player. And the really unfortunate thing is that the timidness actually makes him hit more out. You know. But what I've been contemplating lately is that in the face of every fearful decision that I've ever made, there's also courage. Like, you can't have fear without courage. And oftentimes there's so much trust, especially, you know, if you're moving through a situation, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, there's a tremendous amount of faith that is required, and courage. And that, I think, has been something that's been really helpful for me, to just look at, where is my courage? Let's turn the volume up on the courage that it took for me to move through that fearful situation, because that's the clue in how I can move through it in the way that I want to show up for the next situation. Because that courage comes from trusting myself, trusting God, trusting that it's this or something better, that all things are here for my good, whether that's something that is going to work out, a circumstance that's going to work out for my benefit, or a lesson that I learned. It's one or the other. How is this here for my good? And that knowing this or something better with that faith and trust allows me to take a step forward in courage, when fear would tell me to stop, shut down, control, or react.
Yeah, I was like, what's that saying? It's people don't, like, successful business owners don't have an absence of fear. They just have the courage to work through it. The fear is still present. It's that courage. I was thinking there was just a our Connect networking event last week, and people find out when they get there that they have to go up on stage and share about like who they are and what they, and a lot of them are like, I give them the ticket and they're like, do I have to do this? And I'm like, no, like you don't have to, but like we encourage you to, right? And it's that. But the cool thing is like once they see somebody else get on that stage and see them be nervous, but they can still, share about what they do, then they're like, okay, yeah, I can do it. And so we did end up getting, I think like almost 60 people on stage, and at least half, if not more of those were like, I don't want to do this. But when you step into that and you just have the courage to take the first step, like it just gets easier and easier. And, and that's for speaking too. Like, I've gone through speaker training and doing speaking now, and I still get nervous stepping on that stage, but you just do it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And so then it becomes a question of how much are you willing to let fear hold you back, or are you willing to, take that step of courage or that leap of faith and move forward in it? And, same thing with the RV, like RV life, you don't know what's going to happen, but like, you just do it. And then if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, and you move on with your life. But it's, I think fear is just such a big topic. And I think one of the things that you hit on, Misty, is fear shows up as worry. It shows up as anxiety. It shows up as, trying to think of what else, but like, I feel like a lot of things, the root is actually fear. We just label it as something different.
Yeah. That idea of taking a step into your fear, I think one of the things that I have found for myself, and very much so with my clients, is sometimes the fear says we have to take a giant leap or it's not good enough. And I think that we can move through fear at a snail's pace with a tiny little step forward. And the work is not necessarily in moving through these big blocks of fear, but the work is acknowledging that small step is enough, that small step is in and of itself powerful and courageous.
Oh, so good. So good. Tanya, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just thinking, so I've been having some fear around some business moves I'm taking. And so I'm like, what am I doing? Like, is this a good decision? Like there's some red flags, but on the other hand, I'm choosing to trust my intuition that this is a good decision. So I've got the fear there. I've also got the courage and just like trusting that inner voice, right, Misty, that you always say, like, have to go with your gut and trust that it's good, that it's the right decision for you. And so, so there's always those fears in business and life, right, around, am I making the right choice? So, and then also knowing too, like, if it doesn't work out, like, it's not the end of the world. I've made mistakes before in my business, and I just pivoted and tried something else if it didn't work out. So
yeah, I think that's like the true definition of an entrepreneur and a business owner is like, you have to learn to pivot. And if you don't learn to pivot, then you die. And it's just, being okay with something not working out. I actually was listening to a podcast, and they were saying, it was Seth Godin actually, and he was saying, if you're doing something new in your business and you're relying on it to work out, you're doing it wrong. Like, you have to be okay with doing it and knowing that it's potentially going to fail, because if you fail, then you're going to find something different. And I thought, wow, that was such an interesting perspective, because when I launch something, I'm like, I want this to, like, I'm relying on this to work. Right. And so, and because he was saying it like that, if you're always relying on it to work, then you're not really truly innovating. And so I was like, wow, that was a really profound thought that just like hit me in a whole new way.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's that Thomas Edison quote, I think. He said, I didn't, fail making 10,000 light bulbs. I found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Like, in order to get to the one that does, that's what he had to do. So that kind of thought helps me know, I'm not failing by trying something that didn't work.
Yeah. And also that, I see creating a business or growth or expansion or whatever as like a string of pearls. And like, I can't go to the next pearl until I've experienced this pearl. And so whether it, I can call it a mistake or a failure, or I can call it a learning experience, but it is the next step on my path that is taking me in the direction I want to go. I talk a lot about following the breadcrumbs of yes. And sometimes the breadcrumb of yes is just like you said, Tanya, that knowing that, okay, this is the next step for me. And I can't see the end result, but I'm following that knowing inside, and it's showing me this is the next step. I just had a similar experience kind of in a different way for me in my business. I was invited to go speak. It was a great opportunity. It was like all these, like, big conference. I felt very honored to be accepted as a speaker. And I had a very strong knowing that I was supposed to say. I even paid for my spot. And I just had this knowing that I needed to be home instead of at that conference. And I said no. I backed out. I gave the money that I had paid. I said it's a donation now. It was a very, I had to really kind of get clear with myself on, is this no coming from fear, or is it coming from faith? And that was and I don't know why. I'm following that breadcrumb of yes, trusting that that's the next pearl on my strand. And maybe it was just in the learning that I gained in that one little pearl. Who knows? But it's a fascinating walk, to walk with fear and recognize what's fear, what's
I think
faith.
that's the biggest point here, is being aware. Like, instead of just acting out of fear and not knowing, like, you're just always acting out of fear, but you're not aware of it, and having the awareness of, like, oh, like you said, am I just afraid to go speak at this conference? Or, is this really something that doesn't feel aligned for me and that I shouldn't do? So you were able to make a choice then, instead of just reacting out of the fear unconsciously.
Exactly. Reacting either way, like reacting just in going because it was something that I had signed up for, even though inside I was in this conflict. That's a reaction versus the reaction of, am I reacting out of fear? But yeah, awareness brings choice. We can't, there is no choice without awareness.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Such a good topic that I feel like we could talk about forever. We have our next aligned gathering coming up tomorrow evening, actually from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Burbity Workspaces. Shout out to Burbity for being our event space sponsor. These events are free. This is just a time for women to come together, to connect, to grow, to build friendships, and really just to work on personal development. So whether you are a business owner, a stay-at-home mom, or you work for somebody else, anywhere in between, this is for you. We invite you to join us tomorrow evening. Misty, Tanya, anything specifically you ladies want to talk about on that topic?
Just that we are going to be speaking about fear, but not from like a let's talk about it kind of way, but we're just going to, I have several different experiences that we're going to just explore what that looks like and how to move through it for you. So we can, like Tanya said, be aware. And that awareness is powerful.
So good. Can't wait for that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live this morning. I will put the link. I always say this. I will put the link in the comments below. If you don't see the link or you're having a hard time finding it, please just message myself or one of us. It's been a little bit wonky with some of the event links. We do have a Facebook group, the Aligned Gathering Facebook group. So if you want to stay up to date on all of our events, you can join that. I'm going to put the link specifically for tomorrow's event in the comments. But if you're not in our group yet and you want to be, please reach out to me and we'll get you connected there. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.